So Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs absolutely rolled through Ole Miss this past weekend at Stanford. An absolute dominant performance on both sides of the ball from the Georgia Bulldogs. Defensively, going into the game, that D line's been a question for a lot of Georgia Bulldog fans. After the first quarter, they held Judkins and the Ole Miss run game to pretty much an absolute standstill. And offensively, of course, Kendall Milton had an absolutely phenomenal game. Carson Beck, he's improving every single game. We still haven't seen the best ball Carson Beck's going to play this season. Drew, with that being said, your Georgia Bulldogs rolled Ole Miss. What were some of the red flags you had going into the game that in the game you saw answered?
Yeah, Aiden, one thing I was really concerned about heading into this game was Ole Miss's tempo on offense and how Georgia was going to respond to it. And obviously, Lane Kiffin has a lot of tricks up his sleeve, and you knew he was going to bring him out for this game. And I think Lane Kiffin did do a good job scripting his first one or two drives of the game. Obviously, Georgia's defense really didn't have an answer for, and Georgia did have a lot of younger guys playing, especially at the linebacker position. And Lane Kiffin was giving everything he got. So I think Georgia responded well after the first couple of touchdowns they gave up. Ole Miss really did a good job with the crowd roaring, and they really went down the field and scored at will. And but Georgia, you can just see the coaching difference there, the adjustments that Georgia's able to make. And this isn't the only game that this has happened in. Georgia's one of the best teams in the country when it comes to making adjustments, and I feel like that's something that a national championship team does. So I want to give credit to the Georgia's defense because there were question marks, Aiden, and we made a video about this, talking about some potential red flags for them. But I think for the most part, Georgia's defense did a really good job against a really high-powered Ole Miss offense. And if Georgia's defense could continue to improve and this offense continues to click how it is, it's just hard to see Georgia losing a game in the near future.
Yeah, a lot of people have been making a fuss about how Georgia is so good in the second half. And that couldn't be more true and more apparent in this Ole Miss game. Georgia really just puts it on teams in the second half. In the second half, they can. If they got to go put a team away in the second half, they can. We saw that against Ole Miss. Now, offensively, you've been pretty hard on Kendall Milton all year. Game, he absolutely showed out. With Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey both being on the field for Georgia, there's so much to worry about if you're a defense playing this Georgia offense, with Carson Beck being able to throw the ball to pretty much anybody at this point with the lineup that you guys have. How much do you think that having Bowers and Ladd McConkey and a dominant pass game opens up the run for Kendall Milton?
Yeah, and getting Brock Bowers back. First of all, I was a little skeptical of him playing. I didn't want Georgia to rush him in his return. I wanted Brock Bowers to be 100% healthy. And honestly, it looked like he was ready to go in this game, and he looked good to go. But to answer your question, though, having Bowers and the attention that he draws from the defense really opens up so many things, especially in the run game. And I think another thing that people didn't really talk about was the returning of Amarius Mims, tackle for Georgia. He's an absolute hoss, and this is a big human being at tackle. He's like 6'8", like 330, and he can move. So I think the offensive line, he's one of the leaders of the offensive line, really was just clicking on all cylinders, and they put together a complete game. This was by far the best the offensive line has played all season. And I've been a little bit hard on the running backs, yes, but I've also been pretty hard on the offensive line. I feel like we haven't been getting pushes on teams that we should be getting. But in this game, that wasn't the case. The Georgia offensive line were opening up some just big holes for Kendall Milton to run through. And I have been hard on Kendall Milton. I know what kind of back he is. He's a power back. He might not be the most fast back in college football, but he runs hard. And when he does run hard, he's hard to bring down. I mean, you saw people just bouncing off of him like he was a bowling ball coming through, hitting pins. And that's the Kendall Milton I've been wanting to see for a while. He ran like he actually had a lot to prove. He ran angry. And that's what you're going to get. He's going to be able to bust free. And really, Georgia's running game has not been explosive in the slightest. Sure, they get 5-6 yards here and there, more times than not. But I've been waiting on that run to bust for 40-50 yards. And Kendall Milton did that a couple times. And that's just really hard for a defense to slow down when you're already dealing with Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey and Ra Thomas and name X receiver that Georgia has. Georgia's offense put up 600 yards for a reason. This is an elite offense when they got everyone together. And this was really, Kirby Smart said this himself, this was Bobo's first game where he's had pretty much every weapon available for him. Every game this season, it seems like Georgia always has one or two guys missing. And if this is what you're going to get from Bobo when he has his everyone on that team ready to go and healthy, this is going to be scary because you got to think Georgia's defense, although they might not be generational like they've been in the past couple years, they're still not going to, it's hard to see a team scoring more than 30 points against this defense. And I can get to the point now where I think I could say Georgia's offense, I'm comfortable with scoring almost 30 points a game now, especially with everyone back. And Georgia's a totally different team when they play a ranked opponent, Aiden. We've seen, how many times do we see Georgia play against an inferior opponent, and it just seems very vanilla, and it just seems like Georgia's just trying to get out with the least amount of effort possible they can put in. And then once they play like an Ole Miss or any kind of ranked opponent, they just open up that playbook, and it's just aggressive. And that's when Georgia's at their best, is when they call aggressive plays.
You're 100% correct, Drew. And a lot of Georgia fans and football analysts were upset at Mike Bobo for not calling aggressive play calls at the beginning of the season. You know, the first couple of games, a lot of Georgia fans were upset because they weren't taking the top off the defense with, you know, the 50 and 60-yard passing plays. That was partially because Carson Beck just wasn't hitting on them at the beginning of the season. And also, if you're Mike Bobo, this is your first year in this back in this offense, you know, back calling plays at Georgia. Anybody who's played any amount of football knows, like at fall camp, the defense is always ahead of the offense, strictly because it takes a lot longer to install an offense than it does a base defense. So Mike Bobo, as the season has gone on, has continued to add layers to this offense, and they've continued to play better teams where they have to run, you know, some of their more aggressive stuff, you know, some of their different stuff, rather than just stay in their basic shit. If you're playing Austin Peay or Ball State, you're not going to run, you know, any of your, you know, advanced stuff that you're keeping for, you know, Tennessee and Ole Miss and Missouri. You don't want any of those plays on film. You know, you can stay in your basic stuff against some of these bad teams and still win, although it'll be close. You know, Georgia, they're going to be able to win just off talent in 85% of the games that they play. But as the season's gone on, Mike Bobo has proved that he knows how to call plays, and with the weapons that he has, that he knows how to use them. I loved how Mike Bobo used Brock Bowers before his injury, lining him up and motioning him and shifting him at multiple different positions to create mismatches. And going forward in this Tennessee game, Tennessee's defense could be in trouble if they use Brock Bowers how they did pre-injury. You know, obviously he was a little bit, you know, handicapped, minute restricted in that last game. He wasn't doing as much. He still looked healthy, though. Like you said, in the Tennessee game, if he looks healthy and they use him how they did pre-injury, Tennessee's defense could see some trouble.
And Brock Bowers, yeah, he was out there and he was running around. He played a lot in the first half, but you kind of saw him. It looked like he was almost being used as kind of a diversion. And you saw when they would show the replay when Georgia was passing the football, you would see the attention that him just running out in a route would take from a safety or a backer. And that really what was freeing up so much stuff down the field for Carson Beck, who was really improved with his deep ball accuracy. And Carson Beck's done a really good job of being able to throw post, 30 yards down the middle of the field on a rope. I mean, he literally he looks like he's NFL ready with that arm when he makes throws like that. But again, Brock Bowers is able to just do that just by his presence alone. So that's just such a good thing that Georgia has him back, Aiden, and I do expect him to be more involved with the offense as the next couple games go along, especially trying to get him ready for the Alabama game. And you're right. There was times where Tennessee, especially in the linebacker area against Missouri, seemed to really struggle with that sideline-to-sideline speed. Number 44 for Tennessee comes to mind, and we'll talk more about this when we get in the preview and prediction. But I'm sure Bobo's gonna see that, and he's gonna try to get some matchup advantages to really attack the perimeter through that. But one of the main things I really want to discuss is C.J. Allen, the freshman linebacker for Georgia, replacement for Jamon Dumas-Johnson, number 33. He's 6'1", 235 pounds. And he did make a lot of mistakes early in that Ole Miss game, and you saw Kirby Smart coaching him hard on the sideline. But C.J. Allen finished with 8 tackles, a sack, and he was flying across the field. Don't look now, but C.J. Allen could be the next great linebacker at Georgia. And in my opinion, maybe not right now, but I think his ceiling potential is higher than Jamon Dumas-Johnson. I like Jamon. He's a good linebacker. But I feel like Georgia's really been missing that perimeter, that sideline-to-sideline speed for their inside backers, Aiden. C.J. Allen came in as a freshman. You know how hard it is to get time at linebacker at the college level since you played linebacker in college. So to be able to be a freshman and get on this Georgia defense, you have to be pretty much a generational talent. But C.J. Allen, Aiden, what impressed you the most from this kid?
The number one thing that impressed me, Drew, was his speed, his lateral quickness in particular. If you are going to play as a freshman at the linebacker position, you have to have some amazing instincts and you have to have some amazing speed, because if those linemen do get a hold of you, you're going for a ride. You're going to go about 5-10 yards down the field. But he is so quick and getting under and able to get under these blocks that he can shoot these gaps that these linemen create when they go reach for the second level or as they stick to the double teams up front. Having an amazing D line also helps because the D linemen for Georgia, they do not let the double team get to the second level. They are demanding the double team the whole entire way. And after about a second of your D lineman getting doubled, that's where you start to see holes open up. And if you have someone like CJ who has the speed to get downhill with instincts, you're going to make some plays. And that's where you saw a lot of those tackles. It's just coming off him shooting gaps and getting where he needs to go so quickly. That is a dangerous combination. A very fast player with good instincts being coached in a Kirby Smart defense. In a couple years, it wouldn't surprise me to see him be an absolute monster at the linebacker position, because this is the new prototype we're seeing. Linebackers are no longer 250 pounds. They're 230, and they can guard a Brock Bowers on a one-on-one. Potentially he has the athletic capability to do that. So going forward, he could be a staple for this Georgia defense. I was really impressed what I saw.
And one of the biggest things, and you've heard me say this multiple times, what I want to see from this Georgia defense is I want to see that one guy step up. I want to see that playmaker. The secondary, I think, played really good against Ole Miss. Obviously, our safeties and Bullard and Tyke Smith and Malachi Starks, all those guys are great. And they do make plays. But I want to see someone in the front seven really get involved and just be that game-changing guy that Georgia's had for the past couple of years when they've had these generational defenses. I want to see a Jalen Carter. I want to see a Nakobe Dean or a Roquan Smith in there. CJ Allen, just from that game alone, just what I saw from him alone, I'm not saying it's going to be this year. I think he has the potential to reach that, and if that's the case, I think Georgia's defense is really set up nicely for the next couple of years. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. As always, if you enjoyed the video, leave a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and be sure to be on the lookout for some content coming out this week. We've gotten a lot of new subscribers in the past week or two, and we really do appreciate you guys for subscribing to the channel and watching our videos. We really, really do appreciate that, y'all. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. We'll see you in the next one.